remember the smell of burnt coffee. The bitter scent still clung to the edges of my blouse as I stood frozen in the hallway, phone in hand, heart pounding. One moment, I had everything: my family, my job, my home. And in the next, it all slipped away like water running through my fingers. It wasn't a slow collapse. It was an explosion. One phone call, one locked door, one message that shattered everything I thought was stable. That morning, I had smiled in the mirror, fixing my hair for an important meeting. By sunset, I was sitting alone in my car, staring at an eviction notice, a pink slip, and a text that said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. My boyfriend of 3 years gone. My job terminated due to cutbacks, my apartment leased to someone else." I was drowning, and no one was coming to save me. What do you do when everything disappears at once? When your life is swept from under you like a rug yanked without warning? I wanted to scream, to cry, to disappear myself, but I didn't. I sat there, numb. It was too much to feel, too fast to process. The silence was louder than any heartbreak I had ever known. People always say when it rains, it pours, but no one warns you what to do when the storm never stops. I kept thinking maybe I deserved this. Maybe I wasn't enough. I replayed every decision I made, trying to find the crack where everything started to break. I couldn't find it. All I had were pieces. And yet, this wasn't the end. It couldn't be. Something inside me, something small but still alive, whispered, "Keep going." I had nothing left, but maybe that meant I had nothing to lose. And that's where this story really begins. If you're still here, thank you for walking with me through this journey. My story may be mine, but if even a piece of it spoke to your heart, I believe it now belongs to both of us. You are not too far gone, not too broken, not too late. Your scars are not shameful. They are echoes of your survival. And somewhere inside you is the same fire that brought me back. If you believe in second chances, if you've ever had to start over, or if you simply needed to be reminded that light still exists, leave a comment below with your city and country and tell me, what did you survive? And if you felt this story in your soul, subscribe, like, and let's keep healing together. Chapter 5, I lost everything in one day, but that day didn't end me. 1. It started with a phone call. My ex-husband, who hadn't spoken to me in over a year, was in an accident. He survived, but he needed someone to take care of our daughter for a few days. His new girlfriend had left. His parents were gone. And somehow, I was still the emergency contact. For a moment, I considered saying no. But I didn't, because she was mine too. And love doesn't dissolve with divorce. When I picked up Sophie from the hospital, she didn't run into my arms. She was quiet, confused, older than I remembered. The pain of that distance sliced through me, sharper than I expected. That weekend, we sat in the park. We didn't talk about the past. We watched squirrels chase each other. She asked if I was okay now. I said yes. She nodded, like that was enough. When I dropped her off 3 days later, she hugged me and really hugged me. For the first time in years, it felt like my heart grew roots again. Back at the center, they offered me a permanent position. My memoir draft was nearly done. Rita promised to help me self-publish. I still lived in a tiny apartment above a bakery, but I decorated it with secondhand Joy fairy lights, old books, Polaroids from the center. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The anniversary of that day came. I lit a candle. I didn't cry. I wrote a letter, not to the man who left or the bank who foreclosed, but to the woman I used to be. I forgave her for not knowing better, for staying too long, for leaving too late, for finally walking away. I read that letter aloud at the women's circle, and something shifted. One of the newer women stood up, eyes brimming, and said, "If you made it out, maybe I can too." That night, I walked home under the city lights, the wind kissing my cheeks, and I whispered into the air, You're not broken. You're becoming. A podcast invited me to share my journey, then a book club, then a school. Every time I stood on a stage or sat in a room with strangers, I felt nervous, but not ashamed. I told my truth, not for applause, but so that others wouldn't feel alone. I still visit the hospital sometimes, the one I woke up in. I walk past the entrance, now wearing my staff badge, and silently thank the universe for keeping me alive. For letting me be forgotten just long enough to remember who I really was. One day, I want to open my own shelter, a place for women who fall hard and rise harder. A place with light in the halls and music in the kitchen. Where stories matter, where no one is just a number on a clipboard. I lost everything in one day, but that day didn't end me. It cracked me open, and inside was fire and steel and hope. And now I walk forward not with fear, but with faith. Because I know what it means to rebuild a life with nothing but grit and grace. Chapter 4, The Weight of the Past and the Whisper of Hope. 1. Monday came like a test. I stood outside the outreach center, Claire's card in my hand, my heart thudding in my chest. I had almost turned around twice. What if they didn't remember me? What if they thought I wasn't enough to belong there? But something, maybe pride, maybe desperation, made me push the door open. Claire greeted me with a warm smile and a firm handshake. You showed up, she said. That's more than most. She introduced me to the team, a mix of counselors, caseworkers, and volunteers. Everyone moved with purpose, and every corner buzzed with life. Women talking, kids playing, phones ringing. It felt alive, real. Over the next hour, I shared more of my story. Not the polished version, but the raw one. Claire listened without judgment. You don't need to have everything figured out, she said, but you do need to be honest. That's what makes people trust you. I realized then that my brokenness wasn't a liability. It was a connection. She offered me a part-time position, front desk assistant, organizing files, greeting visitors, helping with intakes. Let's call it a trial month, she said. My hands trembled when I signed the papers. It wasn't much, but it was a job, my first real step back into the world. My first proof that maybe I was still worthy. The hardest part wasn't the job. It was confronting the past. Every time a woman walked in crying, clutching a trash bag of clothes, I saw myself. I relived that night, that couch, that silence. But I also saw strength, and slowly, I started seeing it in myself too. Rita visited one day, surprising me during lunch break. Told you had it in you, she said with a grin. She handed me a small wrapped gift, a pen with my name engraved. For your writing, she whispered. I nearly cried. That night, I wrote until 2 a.m. It wasn't just journaling anymore. It was becoming a memoir. As days turned into weeks, I grew into the role. I started helping with women's circles, sharing my story with new arrivals. At first, my voice shook, but the more I shared, the more they leaned in. They cried, they thanked me, they told me they felt seen. That's when I knew this was bigger than survival. It was purpose. One evening, a young girl about my daughter's age came in with her mom. She had wide, frightened eyes. I knelt down and handed her a stuffed bear from the donation bin. She clutched it like salvation. Her mom nodded thank you with tears in her eyes. My heart cracked open in the most beautiful way. I still had nightmares. I still missed my old life. But I stopped wishing for it back. The woman I had been, who lived for appearances, who ignored the cracks in her marriage, who silenced her needs, she was gone. In her place stood someone raw, but real, someone hurt, but healing. I wasn't just getting my life back. I was building a new one day at a time. One brave choice at a time, and the echo of that pain. It wasn't fading, it was transforming into something powerful. A story that might just help someone else find their way out of the dark. Chapter 3. A hand reached out when I least expected. 1. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The shelter was still quiet, filled with the soft hum of breathing and the occasional rustle of a blanket. I sat up slowly, my body sore, but not broken. For the first time in days, I didn't feel completely invisible. I had a place, even if temporary. I had somewhere to be, even if that somewhere was rock bottom. After a cold breakfast, instant oatmeal and weak coffee, I found myself staring out the small kitchen window. I didn't know what I was waiting for. A sign, a miracle, a reason to keep going. That's when Rita came in. She was carrying a box of donated clothes and spotted me standing there. "Come help," she said. No questions, no pity. Just a simple command, so I followed. We unpacked sweaters, jeans, even a pair of new socks. I folded silently, grateful for something to do with my hands. Rita glanced at me. "You've got good energy," she said. "Ever thought about volunteering here for a while? We can't pay, but it might help you get back on your feet." My heart skipped. A purpose, a reason to stay. I nodded, blinking back tears. The next few days blurred together. I cleaned the bathrooms, served meals, organized supplies. I talked to other women. I listened to their stories, stories of violence, addiction, betrayal, poverty. I wasn't alone in my pain, and for the first time, I stopped asking, "Why me?" and started thinking, "What now?" One afternoon, while sorting donations, I found a leather-bound notebook, blank, crisp, and touched. Something inside me stirred. I hadn't written in years, not since college, not since life got too loud. But that night, under the dim shelter light, I opened it and began to write my story, not for anyone else, just for me. Each night I wrote a little more. The pages soaked up my sadness, my anger, my memories. They became my mirror. Writing gave me a voice again, a way to reclaim the narrative that had spiraled out of my control. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me that I still had something to say. A week later, Rita approached me with a flyer. "There's a job fair downtown," she said. "Lots of nonprofits and small companies. Might be worth showing up. You've got heart, and people can see that." I hesitated. I didn't have the right clothes. I didn't even have a recent resume. But she smiled and added, "I've seen people hired with less than you've got." I said I'd think about it. That night, I wore the best outfit I could piece together from the donation bins, a clean black blouse and slacks, the size too big. I printed a basic resume at the library, updated with the truth, currently volunteering at Haven Shelter. Skilled in organization, communication, and empathy. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. At the job fair, I felt out of place at first. Everyone seemed so polished, confident. But then I met a woman named Claire who ran a local outreach center for women. She listened as I shared my story, not all of it, but enough. Enough to see the fire still in me. She handed me her card. "Come by Monday," she said. "Let's talk more. I think you'd fit in just fine." When I left the fair that day, I didn't have a job. But I had a possibility. A door cracked open, a hand extended. That was more than I'd had in weeks. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I didn't need to have it all figured out. I just needed one step forward, and I had taken it. Chapter 2, Hitting the Coldest Rock Bottom. 1. Morning light crept through the cracked window of my car like a cruel reminder that the world hadn't paused for my pain. People jogged by in clean clothes, sipping expensive coffees, while I sat stiff and sore, my back aching from a night in the back seat. My phone buzzed to 3% battery left. No new messages, not even a check-in, not from Jason, not from anyone. I needed to move. I drove to a gas station to wash my face in the restroom. The mirror reflected a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, and disheveled. I cleaned up as best I could, using a tiny travel-size soap I'd found in my glove box. I smiled faintly at the irony. I once had a drawer full of skincare products. Now I was stealing time in a public bathroom just to feel human again. I sat in my car afterward and cried. Not a quiet cry, but the kind that shakes your chest and leaves you gasping. I cried for the job I lost, for the man who walked away, for the home that was no longer mine, and for the version of me that believed bad things only happened to other people. I had nothing left, not even dignity. But somewhere in the breakdown, I realized if this was rock bottom, then at least I had a foundation to rebuild on. I spent the rest of the day calling shelters. Most were full. The woman at the last number on my list sounded tired but kind. "We're at capacity, honey, but if you can make it here by 5, we'll try to find you a spot for the night." "Can you get here?" I lied and said yes. Then I looked up directions. It was across the city, and I was nearly out of gas. I sold the only thing of value in my purse, a gold bracelet my grandmother had given me when I graduated college. The pawn shop guy offered me $35. I didn't argue. I filled the tank just enough to make the drive. Letting go of that bracelet felt like letting go of the last piece of my old life, but I needed a roof more than a memory. When I arrived, the shelter was smaller than I expected, tucked between an old church and boarded-up storefront. A woman named Rita greeted me. Her eyes were warm but tired. "You look like you've been through it," she said. I nodded, and for the first time in days, I didn't have to pretend I was okay. She led me to a cot in the corner and handed me a clean blanket. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, surrounded by strangers who were all carrying their own invisible weights, I felt oddly at peace. No one looked down on anyone here. No one asked how you got here. Everyone was just surviving. I overheard a woman whispering a bedtime prayer to herself. Another man stared at a photo of his kids. We were all broken in different ways, but somehow being broken together felt less lonely. Rita checked in on me before lights out. "You have a name?" She asked. I told her. She smiled gently. "Well, your name tomorrow's another chance. It may not be much, but it's something." Start there. Her words were simple, but they lit something inside me, a spark. A flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't where my story ended. I didn't sleep well. The cot was stiff and the air was cold, but my heart was quieter. I had shelter, I had breath, and I had a choice. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and try. Maybe I'd apply for new jobs. Maybe I'd call someone I hadn't talked to in years. Maybe I'd write again. I used to love writing. Maybe I'd find a way to feel like me again. Because even though I'd lost everything, I hadn't lost my ability to fight. And somewhere inside, I knew that if I could just keep showing up, one sunrise at a time, I could claw my way out of this. Not back to who I was, but forward, into someone stronger. Someone who had scars, yes, but also a story worth telling. Chapter 1, the day everything fell apart. 1. It started like any other Thursday. I was running late for work, holding a half-burnt piece of toast in my mouth and juggling my laptop bag, keys, and a travel mug full of lukewarm coffee. The elevator was broken again, so I sprinted down 3 flights of stairs in heels, barely catching the bus by waving frantically at the driver. It felt chaotic, but normal, routine, life as I knew it. On the way to the office, I remember feeling this odd sense of unease. I dismissed it, like most people do. Maybe it's just stress, I thought. But in hindsight, it was like the universe had gone silent, waiting to deliver the punch. My phone buzzed. A message from HR. "Please come to room 304 at 9 a.m. Bring your badge." That was all it said. No smiley face. No explanation. My hands trembled as I entered the glass conference room. 2 people were already there, the HR manager and my boss, both with solemn faces. "We're so sorry," they began, and I barely registered the words that followed: restructuring, budget cuts. Today is your last day. It didn't matter that I had given 5 loyal years to that company. I was a number on a spreadsheet, deleted with a click. I walked out in a daze. The office that once felt like my second home now felt like a stranger's hallway. My desk had already been cleared. Someone had done it while I was in the meeting. My nameplate was gone. No farewell cake, no goodbyes. Just a box of my belongings and a security guard escorting me out. But it didn't stop there. As I reached my apartment, I noticed a man posting something on my door. I ran over. An eviction notice. Apparently, the management company had made a mistake with my direct deposit rent and assumed I'd skipped 2 months. I had 24 hours to vacate. I tried to explain, tried to call the bank. But it was a Friday. The office was closed. Panic started to rise in my chest like water filling a tank. I dialed the one person I thought would calm me down. My boyfriend, Jason. We'd been together for 3 years. Lived through breakups, reconciliations, holidays, and even planned a future together. When he picked up, he was quiet, too quiet. I told him everything in one breath. His reply, maybe this is a sign. I think we need a break. Then the line went dead. I stared at my phone, tears blurred the screen. That was it. My job, my home, my relationship, all gone within hours. I sat on the front steps of my building, holding that eviction notice, my hands shaking so hard I could barely read the paper. People passed by, some offering sympathetic glances, most pretending not to see me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to vanish. As night fell, I realized I had nowhere to go. My parents lived hours away and we hadn't spoken in months, not since the last argument about my life choices. I had no siblings. My best friend had just moved to another state. For the first time in years, I felt utterly and completely alone. I curled up in the back seat of my car, using my jacket as a blanket. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the city go dark and then slowly come back to life. Headlights passed, rain drizzled on the windshield, and I just sat there, listening to my own breathing. Everything was gone, stripped away in a single day. But somewhere buried deep beneath the exhaustion and grief was something I couldn't ignore, a whisper of defiance. A voice inside me saying, "This isn't the end." I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were swollen, my mascara smeared, but I was still here. I was still breathing, and if I had breath, I had fight. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but this wouldn't be my story's final chapter. Something was coming, something had to change. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to find a way to rise. Some stories don't begin with a smile, they begin with silence, tears, and a heart that's been shattered into 1,000 pieces. This is one of those stories, a story of loss, but also of rediscovery. A journey through the darkest valley of my life, and how I found light again when I thought it no longer existed. If you've ever felt broken, if you've ever watched your whole world collapse in a single day, if you've ever asked, why me? Then this story is for you. You're not alone. What you're about to hear is raw, real, and deeply personal. It's not sugar-coated, it's not polished, but it's true. And maybe, just maybe, it's what your heart needs today. Before we dive into the chapters, I invite you to become part of something bigger. Subscribe to this channel, Love Echoes, where real stories find real hearts. Leave a like if you believe in second chances. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? What country? What city? Let's show how far this message of healing and hope can reach. Each week, I share powerful real-life and fictional stories that echo with pain, healing, love, and faith. They're stories that might just remind you, you're not invisible. You're not forgotten, and sometimes, the most broken hearts carry the deepest strength. So take a deep breath and come with me. This story may begin in darkness, but it won't end there.